So in today's video, you're going to learn how to control anger and even admit to it in codependency recovery, because anger isn't the enemy, avoiding it is. But first, if you're new, my name's Michelle Ferris. I'm a psychotherapist and I love helping people create relationships that work. Part of where we get stuck in our codependency is we pretend everything's fine when it isn't. And the reason most people who struggle with codependency struggle with anger is because they're people pleasers. You want to please other people, so you negate your own needs for other people. Some of us fear conflict. So between being a people pleaser and fearing conflict, we really think the solution is to stuff our feelings and to pretend everything is okay when it isn't. The problem is that you end up paying a price for that, and I don't want that for you. So I'm going to show you how to control your anger with 4 easy ways to stop it from escalating, and how you can use your anger to take better care of yourself in relationships. So if you relate to codependency or being a people pleaser, you probably stuff your feelings. When people hurt my feelings, I just stuffed it and I pretended it wasn't there because I didn't want to deal with it. The problem with stuffing your feelings is that they're going to eventually leak out in destructive ways. And some common ways that if you're codependent or a people pleaser, they might leak out is leaving guilt trips. You might end up saying something really sarcastically. You might even avoid the person that you're upset with because you just don't want to deal with them. I know I've done that one a lot. Pretend everything's fine when it isn't. Another way we do this is that you may find yourself gossiping to a friend just to vent the feelings and frustration because you don't feel like you can tell the person you're angry with directly, because what's really common in codependency is not expressing your anger or expressing it very indirectly. But healthy anger is about expressing it in a direct way that doesn't hurt you or the other person. But if you've done any of these behaviors, say yes in the comments, because believe me, I've done them all too, and there's a better way. Because feelings that don't get expressed turn into anger. So if you're hurt about something and you bury it for years, it's going to eventually show up. And it ends up showing up more intensely because those feelings don't stay buried. And what happens is over time, they get more and more intense. You may even think that if you don't deal with your pain or your anger towards somebody, it's going to eventually go away on its own. Or maybe you think, I'm just being too sensitive, this is silly, I shouldn't be hurt. But I guarantee part of codependency recovery is honoring your feelings. And that means all of them, because feelings aren't good or bad. There are feelings that are difficult though, that's for sure, and anger is one of them. I know for me, about 20 years ago, I decided I was going to finally risk sharing my feelings with a friend, and because I had stuffed all my pain and hurt over the years, I actually blurted them all out in the conversation without meaning to. And she got really hurt and felt attacked. And I didn't know what happened. It took me years to piece together that, oh yeah, I sort of did a dump on her emotionally. All the anger and hurt that I felt over the years just came out in that one conversation. And here's the thing, I didn't mean it to. That's what happens when we stuff our anger. We stuff it for years until one day we can't stuff it anymore and we end up exploding, or we end up saying or doing something that we really regret. So allowing yourself to feel all of your feelings is the starting point of codependency recovery or any kind of healing. Because when we deny how we feel, we're denying our own experience. That's where the overwhelm and the anxiety come from, because if we're not honoring how we feel in the moment, we can't get rid of it. All of those feelings grow and grow and grow in our bodies until we can't take it anymore. And that's when they will leak out in destructive ways. And the problem with stuffing your anger is that you never really feel known in your relationships, because our feelings are part of our experience. And in healthy relationships, you can have all of your feelings. You can tell somebody you're angry without fearing that they're going to hurt you or use it against you in some way. But first, we have to acknowledge that anger can actually be healthy. Now, if you're like me, you grew up seeing unhealthy anger, which is part of the reason why codependent people tend to stuff their anger, because they think anger is rage, or anger means someone is going to get hurt, and that isn't necessarily the case. That's unhealthy anger. Healthy anger is about you expressing or honoring how you feel without blaming or shaming someone else. So you're simply owning, hey, I'm angry because this happened. I'm angry because you said this to me last night and it didn't feel good. And in codependency recovery, there's 2 parts to anger. You have to be able to admit that you're angry, right? That's the first part. And you have to be able to allow yourself to have all of your feelings and not make yourself wrong or tell yourself that you're being too sensitive. Because let me tell you, if I sat with you for 10 minutes and you told me why you were angry, it would make perfect sense to me. I've done this hundreds of times with my clients and my calming anger students. And we have to remember that there's a valid reason why you're upset. So honoring your feelings is a huge part of codependency or relationship recovery, and I really want that for you. So the next piece in codependency recovery is, how do you control the anger when it comes up? I'm going to give you 4 ways, because it's easier to catch anger when it's first starting to build than when you've already lost it, right? If you're already in a rage or you're already screaming, it's way too hard to control it. But if you notice it as it's starting to build, it's going to be way easier. And I'm going to give you 4 ways to do that. The first way is I want you to identify negative thoughts, because I guarantee before you've gotten angry or upset at someone, there was probably a negative thought involved, because thoughts control feelings that determine our behavior. So what I want you to do is think about the last time you got really upset. What were you thinking right before that? Were you thinking something negative about yourself, about the other person, about the situation? Were you making a negative assumption? We do this all the time, but we don't often pay attention to it. So part of anger management is learning how to catch those negative thoughts and before they get out of control. So the next thing I want you to do is I want you to pay attention to what's happening in your body, because that's another way to catch anger fast. Because when we're angry, our heart rate goes up. You might have some muscle tension. You might have some clenched jaw. What is happening physically in your body as you're starting to get upset? Because that can serve as an early warning sign. So for instance, the minute I start clenching my jaw, I know I'm angry. And that tells me that I need to take a break. I need to do something to take care of myself. Because it's an early enough warning sign, I haven't lost control yet. So the next sign I want you to look for is your emotions. What are those feelings that happen early on that aren't full-blown anger? Because if you can catch those feelings early, you're going to be able to control them. You're going to be able to go, oop, I'm starting to feel really annoyed. I need to leave. I need to take care of myself. I need to do something to handle this feeling, rather than say to myself, you know what, it's not that bad. I can continue in this conversation. Because that's the biggest mistake people make in anger, is they think they should keep going in a conversation because the conversation is more important than taking care of their emotion. And that's not true. That's actually going to get you into trouble. Everybody does certain behaviors when they're angry. I get up and I start to pace. Some people get loud. Some people reach for that cigarette or have some sugar. What are those things you do as you're starting to get upset? Because that's another way to catch yourself early. So the 4th way to control your anger early is to notice what behaviors you're doing as you're starting to get upset. Some people pace, or do you start to get loud? Do you clench your fists? What behaviors do you notice you're doing? I had a roommate in college where I always knew he was mad because he reached for that cigarette. So everybody has different behaviors that they do when they're starting to get upset. Pay attention to what yours are. If you're in a marriage or a partnership, ask your partner, do you notice what I do when I start to get upset? Because they might know your early warning sign. Because if you can catch your anger early with these 4 warning signs, it's going to be a lot easier for you to control your anger in your codependency recovery. Because part of the gift of our anger is anger signals us that something isn't okay with us. Someone has crossed your boundary or said something that is not okay with you. And that gives you really invaluable information, because that's how you're going to set your boundary, is when somebody crosses that line, you can choose what you're going to do next. Are you going to stay and let them know how you feel, or are you going to remove yourself? Do you need to call a friend or go to a 12-step meeting? What things do you need to do based on your emotions at this point? Because anger is the sign that something isn't okay, and I want you to start trusting that as giving you valuable information. Now, if you want to learn more about how to control your anger, sign up for my free email course. I'm also doing a 4-week calming anger course on Zoom if you're really interested in a deep dive. Thanks so much.